Gym sessions and sweaty summer activities are back, which means more funky smells in your clothes because sweat leaves behind bacteria that causes those hard-to-remove odors. Clorox fabric sanitizer products are ready to zap the stink out of fabrics in your home by getting rid of 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria. Eliminate odors in every load or sanitize fabrics between washes with one of our fabric sanitizer products. Search Fabric Sanitizer at Clorox.com to learn more. When it counts, trust Clorox. Use as directed.
Sports have a way of bringing us all together. And at Sleeper, we developed a fantasy platform designed to make leagues more fun and personal. Sleeper includes an integrated chat and every feature you could want for your NFL, NBA, and even esport leagues. Plus, it's completely free with no ads. See why millions have made Sleeper the fastest-growing fantasy platform. Download Sleeper on the App Store or Google Play today.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey guys, this is Matt Seidel, and you're listening to Keepin' It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin' It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin' It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll be discussing all this news that's happened in the last week, including COVID-positive tests, new title matches for Wrestle Grand Slam, debuting Young Lions, and more. If you can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider getting a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the Njpw EXT, the only browser extension for njpwworld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how you doing, man?
So if I ever have to do this show alone, this is what the intro rundown of the show will basically sound like. What's up, everybody? It's the young boy Josh Smith here. You're listening to Keeping It Strong Style. We're going to talk about New Japan and some other stuff. I don't have it written out, but I'm going to go off the dome, see what comes out. We got some other shows. Oh, be sure, give us money on definitely donate money. I don't know how you do that, but Jeremy talks about it in the other shows. Go to one of those episodes, and he has the details there, and then follow those details. Oh, rate us, review us. Danny hooks us up with NJPWEXT. I don't know. Anyways, let's do this. That's basically what the rundown sounded like if it was me doing this.
Oh, man.
Oh, shit. Yeah, and we got a Pro Wrestling Tees store, so buy that, too.
be some compelling audio. Well, one thing I want to do real quick, I want to read a rating that we got, a review that we got on Apple Podcasts. This comes from Apple user SingGill2018. Title of the review is Best NJPW Podcast. They say, easily the best podcast covering NJPW. Excellent and thorough commentary. Research is impeccable. Much like an Ospreay and Shingo, Okada and Omega, or Okada and Tanahashi pairing, Jeremy and the Young Boy are a legendary duo. Guests like Chris Samsa are also fantastic in sharing thoughtful comments. Love listening every week as my main NJPW podcast. Out of a 5-star scale, I give this podcast 7 stars.
Man, what a review. I mean, golly. And you know what? Thank you if you've ever left us a review as well. We've gotten a lot of them over the years, but I don't know why. We just never have read them over the air.
I think we've read a couple before, but yeah, we definitely
Maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, be like Sing Gill 2018. Leave us a review on our Keeping It Strong Style feed and the Social Suplex Podcast Network feed. Help us get up in the ratings and on that chart, so we can everybody can find out that we are the #1 NJPW podcast.
Yeah, we'll read out your reviews as long as they're good. If they're trash, we're gonna rip them to bits. But if they're good, inflate our ego. But also, people checking out the show, they need to know. You want to speak to the world, speak to the audience. This is your chance to speak vicariously through Jeremy's, silky tones.
And one more thing that we're going to talk about before we jump into main New Japan news. There was a big return to professional wrestling this past week. The return of one CM Punk, and we had a lot.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Becky Lynch.
I could have been talking about former IWGP champion Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, that's who it should have been. Brock came out here looking like a pumpkin, you know what I'm saying? Literally like a squiggly head, and then that little patch of hair looks like the freaking stalk of the pumpkin. This man looks, ragged. Man
was looking like Moxley on Juice.
I saw someone put a thing out said that he's the evolution of John Moxley, like in Pokemon.
Yeah, it's like congratulations, trainer. Your Dean Ambrose just evolved into a Brock Lesnar.
Here's what happens: you catch a Dean Ambrose, he evolves into a Brock Lesnar, and you're in the middle of the fight, and he's beating your ass, but then you power up, and now you're beating Brock Lesnar's ass, and you think you won. And right before the episode ends, he's like, "This isn't my final form." And you're like, "Wait, what?" And then they're like, "Find out next week." And then the next week, he turns into John Moxley. Yeah.
But no, we're not talking about Brock or Becky. We're talking about Mr. Phil Brooks, CM Punk, who made his return to professional wrestling to AEW this past Friday on Rampage. Pretty big moment, and we had a lot of questions about it, so I figured I'd kick off the show with this, talk about this for a little bit, and then we can jump into the rest of the New Japan news and reviews that we have for this week.
It's not like there was like a ton of shows anyways.
Right. So first from our buddy over at One Nation Radio, Rich Latta, he says, not New Japan, but can you speak on how huge CM Punk's return is and what it kind of means to you?
Yeah. Oh wow, we do have a lot of questions about this. So, this is such a big deal. I think for most wrestling fans, I don't want to go on and on too long about it, but to put it in a concise manner, CM Punk dropping that pipe bomb and the effect the ripple effect that had on the wrestling industry is one of the few things that really piqued my fandom and reignited my fandom and interest in professional wrestling and in the WWE product at the time. And I feel like you can't give him full credit for everything that's transpired over the past decade, but his fingerprint is all over the indies, all over the various different characters, the ring work, the style. It's kind of hard to understate just how influential CM Punk was as a figure and, just as a wrestler. And now that he's returning, he is clearly moving the needle. He outsold the freaking Bullet Club shirt. That shirt's been the most, bought shirt for 7 years straight. And in 72 hours, he broke that record for Pro Wrestling Tees. That's nuts. the demo number that he did Friday night, for 18 to 49 is like unheard of in that time slot. So I mean, it's a big deal. It's a really, really, really big deal. And I mean, yeah, bro, I was like, I wasn't like gonna cry or anything like that, but man, I was like just sitting there the whole time, just like in shock. Like as soon as I heard that music, like da 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 da, and I was like, oh my god, he's coming out. And then he walked out, and the emotion of him crying and jumping in the crowd, and all the turmoil from the past 7 years kind of is just gone. And he could suck. There is that. I have that fear that he could come back and he could suck. But putting all that aside, I mean, that moment was special. I mean, that was like, I was trying to think of like what the most special like return, like the biggest returns to wrestling were, and like it's got to be one of the biggest ever.
Oh yeah, easily one of the biggest returns, one of the best wrestling moments in a long time. It'll go down in the history books as one of the greatest, moments in the business. And yeah, I love this. I watched it live on TNT, and the buzz was just palpable the whole week, and everybody buzzing. Is he actually going to be there? Because they never really announced him, and of course you had people doubting. And wouldn't it be funny if he doesn't show up and all this? And just that, that great moment. You hear the and then Cult of Personality comes on. You see that the Punk logos, the Chicago flag. Then he finally walks on stage, that huge pop, and yeah, just a great moment. I mean, I was always a huge CM Punk fan. Ring of Honor was very big in my wrestling fandom, and during the early 2000s when I kind of was getting a little tired of WWE, Ring of Honor was one of the first alternatives I checked out, and it wasn't always the easiest thing to watch, but I would try and buy DVDs or watch YouTube clips and see all the great Punk promos and the battles with Punk and Joe and Punk and Aries and just all this great stuff he had. And then Punk, he showed up in TNA. He had a long feud with Raven in multiple promotions, MLW, TNA, all over. Him and Raven had great feuds, and he's just one of those top indie names where it's like, there's no way he's going to make it to WWE because of his size and just kind of his character, but I would love him there. And then he finally jumps over, and he was my boy, man. Seeing him go through, ECW on Sci-Fi and going through there, getting to the main roster, Straight Edge Society, all of that till the final moments of that last Royal Rumble, man. He was just such a great addition to WWE at that time. Like you mentioned, the Pipe Bomb promo. I mean, that Pipe Bomb brought back a lot of people who were kind of dormant from watching wrestling. I mean, Rich and James said it themselves on One Nation Radio this week. Like, if there was no Pipe Bomb, there probably wouldn't be a One Nation Radio, which means there probably wouldn't be a Social Suplex podcast network. So
there'd be no Voices of Wrestling either. They've said that on the air many times.
Yeah. I
mean, since we're kind of going down the pipeline, I know we said we were going to spend too much time on it, but it's our show. We got time.
Exactly.
So, for me, like my first exposures to CM Punk, I wasn't always readily able to watch a lot of the indie stuff, but I would go to the dollar store, not the dollar store, but like the drugstore, CVS, stuff like that, and I would go read PWI, and I'd go read like Wow and those magazines, and there's this like really grungy dude named CM Punk, and seeing the dog collar match with him and Raven, like just the pictures of it, and then the cage matches, and I was like, he's having like hardcore fights in Ring of Honor, which I didn't think they did that, and that was like really kind of strange to me. And then I never even really got to see CM Punk until he made it to WWE. I had to kind of go back and rewatch a lot of stuff, but then I heard about the Joe matches, and I was like, he's wrestling for an hour? Like, what in the world?
Is he Shawn Michaels?
Yeah, and then I heard about the Summer Punk, the first Summer Punk, where, this man went corporate, and he was signing his contract on the ROH belt, and I was like, oh my God, like, who is this dude? And then seeing him show up in WWE, those first couple ECW matches, like the ones with like Just Incredible, I was like, he had so many things that like I liked, as like a fight fan. He came in with the freaking taped up gloves, and he'd like do his hands like he was Wanderlei Silva, and he wore like the Japanese style kick pads, which like a lot of people do wear those, but like he looked like a shoot style kind of performer. You know what I mean? Like the way that he was just dressed, and then he was doing all the Kenta moves that were like, you know, that I'd seen in Noah, and I was like, who is this?
Yeah,
like,
man. Doing
like,
the
he's so good.
GTS.
Yeah, and the Koji clutch, and you know, knees and elbows, and just things that you know now are commonplace, but back then they were not commonplace in WWE. And then that Money in the Bank moment, where like, you know, it's you always hear like this guy's contract is up, and once the contract's and they're getting a big push for the title, and you're like, well, they're definitely not winning. And it was like, it's him and John Cena in Chicago. It's his last night with the company. He's for sure not winning. And like there was so much buzz about that event and that match, but I knew for a fact he wasn't going to win. And like and then like I didn't even see it live, to be honest with you. Like I had to go back and rewatch it, but like hearing first of all that it was a 5-star match in WWE, like what? Like they haven't had one of those since like 1997. And then that he did it with John Cena, like what? And then, you know, that he took the belt and then just left. And then they didn't have a title the next night. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, then he posts a picture of the belt in his fridge in his apartment.
Yeah, bro. And just everything with that pipe bomb. He talked about New Japan. He talked about ROH. He talked about Brock Lesnar. He talked about Hulk Hogan. He talked about The Rock. Like, all this stuff you're just not supposed to say. You know, he's wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt. I don't know if you recall, but, like, they were on the outs with Stone Cold at the time.
Yeah.
You couldn't even reference him. And this man comes out in a Stone Cold shirt. I'm like, what's going on?
Hi, Colt Cabana.
And then even like at the tail end of his run, that Royal Rumble where he like was the Iron Man of that Royal Rumble, that's still like one of his best performances. He like went almost a full hour in that. You know, like I was a huge Punk fan, man. And then even when we started this show and we did the U.S. expansion, and there was speculation about him as a free agent and possibly the return of Bryan Danielson, who was also out, you know, on injury, and it was unknown if he'd ever come back. And, you know, we were kind of speculating if either of those two people could get involved with what was going on with New Japan and ROH at the time. And, like, now he's out, and now he's in AEW, and now all these companies are working together, and anything is possible.
Yeah, he did make comments in the post media scrum that, you know, he's an AEW guy, but if Tony Khan wants him to, you know, work the G1, you know, they'll talk about it. And so we have a lot of questions here, you know, revolving around CM Punk in New Japan. First from Hawaiian Punch BV says, some big name wrestler made his debut in AEW this past week. Hypothetically, if a Forbidden Door were to open, what dream matches would you like to see him against New Japan talent? Similar question from Ricky with CM Punk back. Are there any dream-type matches you'd like to see him in against anyone from NJPW? And Dom Hui 101 says, any thoughts on the return of the man, the myth, the UFC icon, the cookie monster, and the chick magnet that's known as Philip Jack Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, besides Ospreay, who would some ideal opponents for Mr. CM Punk in New Japan be?
Well, since Dom Homie 101 already went there, I think the first one you have to throw out is Will Ospreay, being that he's the premier wrestler in the company, and the fact that both of them have mentioned one another in the very recent past as guys that they both like to work against. So, you know, there's a ready-built story already there. And, you know, the idea that CM Punk was brazen enough for all those years to call himself the best in the world, when as good as he is, the truth is he probably never really ever was the best in the world.
Right.
But now you have to carry that moniker with you because that's who you've portrayed yourself to be for so long, and really never been. He spent some time in like 01, and I think he may have done some like LA Dojo work. I don't think he ever wrestled on any of the shows, but I think he might have trained briefly in the LA Dojo, like, you know, did some, you know, shots there. But, you know, he's never been in New Japan. And I think he's always wanted to. And then you've got, you know, Billy Goat, who thinks he's literally like the top guy in the world. So, I mean, I don't know. That's an easy one to make right there.
Yeah, and then obviously I think the biggest matchup obviously is probably with Kazuchika Okada, and you're thinking of New Japan, and an Okada Punk match I think would be pretty cool to see.
The thing is, and it's not that he's unique in this. There's a lot of people this way, but like with him, because he never has competed in New Japan, and most of the guys he may have worked with that were Japanese or, were probably from Noah or 01. He just has a plethora of first-time matches. I mean, Tanahashi,
Shingo,
Naito, Shingo,
Ishii.
Ishii is probably like my top pick because Ishii's always the guy that I go to when I want to see, like, let's see what this dude's made of. Like, I don't know what Ishii and CM Punk looks like, but it just sounds like it would probably be awesome.
Right, and we see Ishii kind of adjust the style too to kind of throw some plunder in there like they did with Moxley. You want to throw some tables in there, some smoke and mirrors to kind of cover up if you need to. I think Ishii's like the perfect, like, well-rounded guy to go in there. I think with Punk would be like a good, like, kind of first, like, all right, let's introduce Punk to the New Japan audience.
There is Moxley.
Yeah.
And while they're both in AEW, there's no denying that they could probably do some serious business in New Japan. Another guy that he's worked with in the past, Chris Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure they're probably going to do business at some point down the line, but I mean, I could see them working together in New Japan. Zack Sabre. There's so many, man.
Yeah, you can literally just, I'll see Kenta, I think, the GTS, first GTS.
Oh, that's probably like the dream match because of how much, Kenta, from what I understand, Kenta doesn't like CM Punk.
Right, and I don't know how much of that's a work or not.
It could be a work.
But I know Kenta's always, kind of throwing jabs or, talking about guys like Punk and Bryan stealing all his moves, and they're the ones that kind of get credit for the moves in the U.S. when it's really, Kenta who popularized the GTS, the Psycho Knee, the Yes Lock, moves like that some of these guys implemented.
Yeah, man. And I mean, there's so many names. There's, Jeff Cobb's out there,
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot.
You can just literally just run down the roster. I mean, I don't know how likely a G1...
Did we not say Tanahashi?
Yeah, you said Tanahashi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, Tanahashi is a big one. A big one.
Yeah, I don't know how likely it is for him to work a G1, but I mean, that would be like the best way to get like a ton of these great matches like we kind of got with Mox going in there, got to wrestle a bunch of people. It'd be cool for him to kind of mix it up with a bunch of these people in the G1 situation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was going to say you have political drawbacks when it comes to guys that are outside being in the G1, but I guess you could apply that to if he takes a part-time sort of big match status either way. That's kind of going to be a hurdle that they have to get over. I wouldn't be opposed to him being in a G1, but I also wouldn't be opposed to him maybe just doing big shots, And here's the other cool thing is, like, if you have, for instance, like, and I'm not saying it has to be these guys specifically, but obviously you've got Jericho, Moxley, guys that they've used in those roles in the past. And if you kind of have a circulation of guys like that, let's say Punk, let's just throw them out. Let's just say Bryan, Jericho, and Mox. I mean, they don't all have to be working at the same time. You can kind of rotate them, you know what I mean?
Right.
And have a plethora of guys that you can call upon to do big matches. I mean, that's a lot nicer than, like, bringing in a whole roster of, like, ROH guys and have no big matches to do.
Yeah. And, we're also starting to see the forbidden door open when it comes to New Japan of America. So I'm not sure how likely it would be or how possible it would be, but it'd be pretty cool to use CM Punk on a New Japan of America big show. We're seeing the impact that he has on AEW, over 1 million viewers on Rampage, like you mentioned, most sold t-shirt in Pro Wrestling Tees history in 72 hours. Millions and millions of YouTube views on the recaps on AEW's YouTube channel.
I went and did a Google search, and I put him, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, and Becky Lynch all in the same search for the past 7 days. And I mean, CM Punk smoked them on Google Trends. I mean, it wasn't even close. He did more than double what they did, which, like, that's shocking. I mean, I thought it was going to be higher, but I didn't realize how much more attention he had gotten. And I mean, that was their WrestleMania this year, probably.
Yeah.
With how big that show was, that was pretty much their WrestleMania. Either that or the upcoming Saudi show. So
yeah, so with the amount of buzz that he gets, like if you can get him on a New Japan of America show, I think that would do wonders for bringing, outside wrestling fan eyes to a New Japan show in America.
Well, I think the first things first, let's see what he does with Darby. Let's see if the reports of him being just as good as he ever was and hasn't lost a step, if that all rings true. I don't doubt it, but, dude, 7 years is so long, And, I mean, I can look back through history and think of guys who have taken really long layoffs and come back and just not been the same, shells of their former selves. And then other times you see guys come back and they're different than they were, but maybe better, sometimes just as good. It's like they never misstep. So it's hard to say what that's really going to look like. Like, we don't even know yet.
Right. So that pretty much. Go ahead.
I'm excited, though. I was just going to say I'm excited for it. That's all.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm pumped up. I think the Darby match should be a lot of fun, and just seeing the kind of impact that Punk will have in AEW and just the effect that it's already having, just based off of one appearance. I think it's just a really exciting time to be a wrestling fan.
I think the biggest thing, too, is he did say, like, he considers himself to be a, out-and-out AEW talent. That's kind of how he's considering himself. But the mere fact that they mentioned the idea of him doing a G1 means that they had to have at some point discussed that, which means he, on some level, probably has a desire to do business in Japan. And I think deep down he always has, since it's something he's kind of talked about. And, regardless of what he said in the media, he's always been a fan of Japanese-style wrestling. So I would put big money on, if I was betting, I would put a lot of money on the idea that someday he works New Japan. I think it's an inevitability at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll probably have a contract similar to Moxley and some of the other bigger guys that came in initially that were working both. And yeah, he's been talking to Tony Khan for over a year and a half, so I'm sure he's had plenty of time to think and iron out things that he would want to do in AEW and elsewhere.
Well, the other thing too is I don't even think guys are necessarily needing to have that kind of clause anymore. I'm not, obviously if they can, get more power to control their bookings, great. But with the mere fact that these companies are striking up a partnership and having talent, exchanges, I think certain guys that don't even have clauses like that are going to still be primed to be able to work for New Japan in the future,
Right. Well, let's move on from Mr. Punk and jump into some New Japan news here. So first thing, this came up at the very end of the show last week, so I just wanted to bring it back up and also had some additional information. So at the end of last week's show, we got the news that Shingo and Bushi tested positive for COVID. There was a update from Shingo. This comes from Voices of Wrestling's Patreon. They have a kind of a full write-up on there on the Patreon, but I pulled this little snippet here based on Shingo, and it says that Takagi is showing very mild symptoms and is telling people that he expects to be good to go for the Evil match at Wrestle Grand Slam on September 5th. Even if Takagi tests negative by then, there is some concern among the crew as to whether he will be cleared by New Japan doctors, as Kota Ibushi felt healthy enough to work the Tokyo Dome show on July 25th, but was ultimately not cleared. Working in Takagi's favor is that other wrestlers diagnosed with COVID-19 have been cleared to wrestle quickly once they test negative. And we had a question here from Dom Homie 101. With Shingo having COVID-19 issues, how likely or unlikely is it to see Shingo defend his title against Evil?
Well, the unfortunate reality is if he's unable to compete, I believe the IWGP committee is going to strip him of the belt and award it to Evil as the number one contender just outright. So we may just be looking at another Evil title reign on the horizon.
Not necessarily. They could turn the...
Nope, that's how it's happening. He's going to, if he doesn't compete, that's a forfeit. Evil is your new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion.
That didn't happen.
And you can't tell me otherwise. That's what's happening.
That didn't happen in the Ibushi situation.
That's because they didn't have a number one contender, and clearly Evil's the number one contender, so it's a little different.
Did they not have? Because Ibushi was facing. Who's Ibushi facing? He's supposed to face.
Never mind all that.
Okada.
Evil is going to be the world champion.
No, they could do the Okada Cobb match as a contender, number one contender.
Nope. Evil. Best thoughts to Shingo. Not just because we want to see him wrestle, but because I don't want him to get long COVID. I don't want him to have any complications, anything like that. So, hope he's resting well. Hope he's recouping. The report that you just read sounds great. Sounds like he has milder to no symptoms, which is awesome. A lot of the rest, didn't they just have everybody vaccinated recently?
Yep. Yeah. Bushiroad had all the wrestlers vaccinated about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there is a time period before full efficacy takes place with the vaccines, but perhaps that might be one of the reasons why he's feeling fine, which, if so, that's good. But I don't know what they do if he doesn't wrestle, but based on the reports, it sounds highly likely that he will be able to wrestle in time, although the time frame is pretty close. So, I mean, it's precarious.
Yeah, I think his 2 weeks of quarantine would be up. I think either that Thursday or Friday leading into Wrestle Grand Slam weekend. So, yeah, like you mentioned, cutting it really close, and, his fate is kind of in the hands of New Japan doctors, but this report is kind of leaning to good news. He's not really experiencing any symptoms, seems to be fine. It's kind of a similar situation kind of to Okada and some of the other guys who had gotten COVID a few months ago. And so it seems like Shingo should be able to be back in action to wrestle Evil on night 2 of Wrestle Grand Slam.
Now, the big question is, if he is unable to compete, what happens? I don't think they're going to strip him or anything like that, because he'd probably be ready to defend the title or, to compete very shortly after this, provided everything goes well. So I think the big question at that point is what ends up headlining the second night of these big shows, and I don't really know.
Yeah, you might have to switch the card around. The next thing we're going to talk about could potentially be an option. So IWGP US champ Tanahashi, he issued out a challenge to his partner, Golden Ace tag team partner Kota Ibushi, for September 4th, night 1 of Wrestle Grand Slam. Kota Ibushi has accepted the challenge, and the IWGP committee has made it official. So it will be Tanahashi defending his newly won U.S. title against the Golden Star Kota Ibushi September 4th for night 1 of Wrestle Grand Slam. So, I mean, that's a potential. You could move that match to night 2 and make that the main.
Right, but then you still need a headliner for the first night. So I'm just wondering.
Okada and Cobb.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just wondering how these shows end up looking, considering that there's 2 of them back to back. They're supposed to both be really big shows. I don't know.
Right.
I guess that remains to be seen. Hopefully, we don't need to cross that bridge. Hopefully it doesn't come. So we will see. But yeah, the news about Tanahashi against Ibushi is outstanding. Obviously, Ibushi is a little bit on the outs since, not, basically failing to become IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. So this is kind of like a good restart path for him at this point. And the thing is with him and Tanahashi, I think they've had, if I recall, about 6 matches prior to this. And I don't think they've ever had anything less than a 4.5 star quality match. Namely that G1 finals that they had. What was that, 2018?
Yeah.
And that's one of the greatest matches in the history of New Japan, in the history of professional wrestling. And for my money, it's the single greatest G1 final in history. I don't expect them to necessarily replicate that, but I mean, this is one of the strongest series of matches in modern New Japan, and it doesn't get brought up as often as some of the other big, kind of more famous series. But I mean, bro, Tanahashi and Ibushi, they kill it every time.
Yeah, so this should be another excellent matchup between these two. U.S. title on the line. I mean, I also won't give the official preview predictions here, but this is a match where I really think you could go either way if you want to kind of get Ibushi back on track and give him a big push, or if you want Tanahashi to kind of be the red belt champion going forward and, you know, traveling between the U.S. He did said he'll be back, so you could keep it on Tanahashi, and a good little spot for Tanahashi to be in as well. Bro,
Ibushi wins the title. We got 2 domestic Japanese stars back-to-back as U.S. champion. I mean, tide's turning on that belt. I thought that was the white man's belt, but they took it back.
Yeah, they reclaimed it.
They reclaimed it.
Oh, man. So, next...
this shit belongs to Juice Robinson. No more. Cody Rhodes, go to hell.
Jay White, who?
Yeah.
But next thing here, the Autumn Attack Tour for New Japan of America, that's on September 25th and 26th, had some big names announced for those strong tapings. So we're going to have Will Ospreay, we're going to have Minoru Suzuki, and we're going to have the Murder Hawk Monster Lance Archer, all 3 of those names announced for Autumn Attack, which is happening at the Curtis Caldwell Center, September 25th. 26. These are New Japan Strong TV tapings. This does mean that Suzuki will not be in the G1. So, Josh, thoughts on these 3 names being announced for Autumn Attack, and then thoughts on Suzuki not being in the G1?
I think it's great to see them kind of stack up these TV shows, because what that means ultimately is that us, the viewing audience who are watching Strong, we're not just going to get your standard fare, you know, Jared Kratos, like Mysterioso and, you know, Jordan Clearwaters. While those guys are great and I like them a lot, they're also rounding it out with domestic top stars, you know, international guys, AEW type guys, which really brings up the prestige level of the show, and it helps them. It also helps the guys that I aforementioned. So all around, those shows sound like they're going to take a step up in notch in quality. The other thing, too, is, you know, they were struggling to sell tickets in some of these markets. And, you know, you got to imagine that this is going to be a boost to some degree. Now, to what degree, I don't know, because I was looking into this and reading and hearing that the cost of the tickets were, you know, exponentially higher in this building for New Japan than they were when, say, AEW ran the same market, the same building just recently. Yeah. You know, it was like tickets that were like $30 were like $70. Tickets that were like $50 are now like $90, $100. And I really kind of have to question that logic on the New Japan side. Why, like, who made that decision? What kind of went into that? But ultimately speaking, I mean, having Ospreay, Suzuki, and Archer on the card doesn't do anything but help, you know, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there's any updated numbers from WrestleTix. There's nothing updated from the last numbers I had last week, but I did see, you know, New Japan tweeting out that certain sections were, sold out. So I do think these 3 names definitely had an impact on increased ticket sales for the events. Like you said, how much, I guess we'll see when the final numbers come out. Like you mentioned, yeah, it's great to have these names. It's going to elevate Strong, and yeah, it's just going to make Strong more must-watch TV. You know, Strong's already great, you know, no fans and the names they had, but now we have fans. We have top names like Ospreay, Suzuki, and Archer being on here, and I'm sure we'll get some kind of Suzuki-Gun, you know, tag match with Suzuki and Archer teaming up against somebody, which would be pretty cool. So I think it's, great stuff for New Japan of America.
Yeah, I'm very ready for, you know, fans in attendance at the Strong tapings.
Yeah. So next thing here, we have the votes for the KLPW 2021 match. So after 17,598 votes that were cast worldwide, we have a winner for the rules for the Chase Owen and Toriano match at September 4th.
Blindfold toe hold match. You have to hit a toe hold with a blindfold on to win the match. Otherwise, you lose.
Don't give them any ideas.
There's a 20-minute time limit. If neither man wins, the KOPW, the title becomes vacant and will be
goes away.
It will actually be contested by the IWGP title later that evening. So Evil and Shingo will be for the KOPW/IWGP World Title, a unification of sorts.
That's not a bad idea.
And if Shingo is unable to compete, Evil wins both titles by forfeit. The first ever double champ.
Now you've gone off the rails. But in actuality, the vote was in favor of Toru Yano winning 76.4% of the vote. So it's going to be an I Quit match, no DQ I Quit match, night one Wrestle Grand Slam between Yano and Chase.
Have you heard of a DQ I Quit match? You got to win. You gotta get the guy to say I quit, but you could get disqualified.
Sounds like something 2000 WCW would do.
Yeah, that would like. Aren't all I Quit matches no DQ? Like, what the heck?
They should be.
You know what though? There was one time I was watching. Oh man, what is that? There's a match. I don't know. I forgot, so it doesn't matter. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's just move on.
So next thing we had a video update from Hiromu Takahashi. He issued a challenge to.
Oh, I know what it was. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, this is it. March 23rd, 1981. Terry Funk versus Jerry Lawler at the Mid-South Coliseum. It's a no DQ match, but it ends in a countout because there was no disqualifications, but it didn't mean that there wasn't still a count on the outside. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I've never thought of that because in my lifetime, every no DQ match meant
no count.
Literally,
no
there's
rules.
no count out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no rules. But apparently it didn't always used to be that way. In fact, that match is incredible. It's like...
Didn't you show us that match?
I think I showed you guys the empty arena match.
Yeah.
Yeah, the no DQ match, though, is like one of my favorite 80s matches. But it is kind of jarring to see like someone get counted out in a no DQ match, you know? But then you think about it, you're like, I guess it does kind of make sense because he never did say no count out. Like, you know?
Right. And I guess, I don't know if it's something with the translations and maybe like an I Quit could be translated as like a submission match to them, maybe, possibly. And so just
like the ultimate submission match between like Angle and Benoit,
something like that. Yeah, or just a regular like submission rules match. So maybe they're just clarifying like we mean a no DQ I Quit match, not like a submission match.
Well, that's good. You know, these guys been cheating a lot, so.
So I was saying we had a video update from Hiromu Takahashi, issued out a challenge Doki. He said he didn't realize there was a Super Junior Tag League that was happening, and he wanted a match before he faced off against Robbie Eagles. So he threw out a challenge to our good pal Doki here. So that's going to be coming up at Cork and Hall later this week. That should be a pretty fun matchup there. Best Super Junior match was great.
Bro, Doki's one of the best investments I've ever made as, you know, a podcaster. You can go back to the early days of Doki's run where I'm like, you know, this guy Doki's kind of lit. And you're like, what?
You were ahead on that one.
And I'm like, this guy's underrated. Like, he's kind of good, actually. I don't know. All this hate. Bro, you remember those early match ratings?
Yeah.
They were...
Honestly, the problem was he was in there. Also, you had, like, Ospreay and Dragon Lee. You had all these, like, Shingo, you had all these guys, and it was like
Bandito.
Right. It was like you were comparing him to all these guys, in which he was still pretty good compared to those guys, but still people were looking at like Ospreay and Bandito having, 4.75 to 5-star match, and he's maybe having like a 3.5 match. And people are like, he sucks.
Nah, bro. Bandito, like literally, we're gonna talk about it, but I was watching today's show and I was like, this man just every night wrestling like I can't go back.
Yeah.
Not going back to Mexico. I'm here.
Not going back to the mud hole indie in Tijuana.
Yeah, so him and Hiromu wrestled each other in the Super Juniors, and that match was crazy.
Yeah.
Remember they did a bunch of crazy dives in that match, so I'm kind of excited for that. Like, yeah, if you guys aren't on the Doki train, you need to get on the Doki train.
Hop on now before it's too late.
Yeah.
Also coming up this...
I think Doki should beat Robbie Eagles.
Or maybe Doki can beat Hiromu and get inserted into the title match. It could be a 3-way.
You know what I don't like is that like the only thing that Doki's really over for with most fans is Gino Gambino saying, Doki, Choki! But I'm like, no, I'm with him because he wants the smoke. This man is ready to kill himself, you know?
Yeah, this man be, throwing his body to the ground.
Bro, he throws his body to the ground like no other. It's incredible.
Yes,
like
this man be going head first into the rails for no reason.
Today's Cork and Hall, there was nobody there. This man's wrestling like it's, Madison Square Garden,
This man's trying to get a G1 spot.
He's trying to get something.
He's like, man, all these people are in the U.S. I'll slide in a spot.
Well, he knows the dirty little secret that if you're a domestic talent, you didn't wrestle in that funky no-gay dojo, you gotta work triple hard, just to get half the results.
But also coming up this week in the Cork and Hall shows, which started today, we had the debut of new young lions. So Ryohei, Oiwa, I'm probably butchering their names.
I think it's Oiwa.
Oiwa. And
Oiwa. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I was trying to listen back to the announcer, but I didn't quite get it. I'll get it eventually. And Kosei,
I'll figure it out.
All right, you look that up. So yeah, Ryohei and then Kosei Fujita, they will be competing against each other all this week on the Summer Struggle Tour.
Here, just wait. I'm gonna play it for you.
All right,
you ready?
Yep.
Oiwa.
Oiwa.
You hear that?
Yeah. So Oiwa and Fujita. So
okay, I got that from howtopronounce.com. So if it's incorrect, don't look at us.
So Oiwa is 22 years old, 180 centimeters, and weighs in at 90 kilos. He started out on the amateur mats in middle school, continued through college. He ranked third in the JLC Nationals in 2018 at the 86 kilogram weight class. He participated in the December 2020 Noge Dojo tryouts and entered the dojo in April. And then Fujita also joined the Noge Dojo in April. He was a part of that same December 2020 tryout. He's 19 years old, stands at 178 centimeters and 83 kilograms. He also wrestled in high school, and he won the JOC Western and Central Japan Freestyle Tournament at 80 kilograms.
Yeah, so I'm not as knowledgeable about amateur wrestling, folk wrestling, stuff like that as you are, but I did a little bit of searching, and so the JOC means Junior Open Championship Nationals, is what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like most countries have them. Like in America, we have a Junior Open Championship as well. So it sounds like some sort of like prestigious tournament that occurs in different countries, and yeah, I mean, this guy Oiwa, he went, placed third in the Nationals. Fujita, a little bit younger. It looks like he won the Western and Central Japan, the JOC Western and the Central Japanese Freestyle Tournament at 80. So, I mean, you got two freaking studs on the mat is what it sounds like to me. I don't know.
Yeah, and we'll talk about their match here in a second. But, yeah, I mean, just based off of that, these guys look great. We had a question from EMJ Does PR. Is the Young Lion narrative the best storytelling framework in wrestling?
It's one of them. I mean, it really is, because I mean it's okay. So like, not everybody is a nerd like me and Jeremy and some of the your diehard New Japan pro wrestling fans who like eat and breathe this Young Lion life. But for those of us that do, I mean, this stuff really matters. But for people that are invested fans in Japan, the people that attend the shows on a regular basis, especially your Cork and Hall crowd, I mean, they really get to see these young men, from the age of 18, 19, 20, raise up over the course of 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, and really see them come into their own, see their character develop, and then they go away. And then when they come back, it's such a big deal. And it's like you have ready-made stars because the people remember them from years ago. And like, it's awesome. Like, even today, like I had the recommended match of the week. And when you're watching that, you're seeing Baby Show and Baby Yo on the outside back in 2013. And now look at where they're at right now, and look at their saga and everything. And I mean, yeah, there's so much history involved with all of this, and I mean, it adds an element of like prestige, an element of tradition. Like there's so many positives behind the way that New Japan does the Young Lion framework. And it's not like other companies don't have something similar. You know, there's definitely dojos and, you know, green boys and young girls all over Japan and America, but nobody seems to put all the pieces together and develop the way that New Japan does.
Right. It's been a system that's been working for, you know, almost 50 years now. You look back and you look at former IWGP champions, top stars. You can trace it, a lot of them back to them starting at the Noge Dojo and their time as young lions, as young boys and coming through. And just a great stories that, you know, that we see of guys like Tsuji and Yamura and that we've seen over the years. And these guys, you know, fighting to get better than each other and just watching their whole journey and watching them go on excursion and then come back. It's such a great like storytelling moment and just a true like from the very beginning to where they end up being. It's a great story that you can tell. Even
like, okay, for instance, there is a Facebook user, Jur Besker, who, for my money, probably is the best content sharer on Facebook. I'm not really on Facebook a lot, but like, you know, I'll hop on to see my notifications, but he's always putting out fire content. Well, I don't know who he is. I just know he's a Japanese wrestling enthusiast. And somehow he unearthed the rare footage of young Minoru Suzuki versus Antonio Inoki, like fabled footage that was literally like for the past, I mean, that match happened in 89, I believe. So, you know, over 30 years, people have been saying that there was no video footage of the match at all, you know?
Yeah.
And there's pictures of it and there's stories about it. And, you know, the story of Inoki, you know, challenging for his final IWGP title against Fujinami on that Fujinami on that 88 show, and then he fails, and he has to start back at the beginning. He starts fighting the young boys, and then he fights Minoru Suzuki, who is his hand-picked protege in the dojo at that time. And people have always wanted to see this footage, and like, there's never been any. Well, apparently there's a fan cam out there. I saw it, I watched it, and like, I'm marking out like crazy because I'm seeing two of the biggest legends in the history of Japanese professional wrestling wrestle at this really like crazy pivotal moment where like Inoki's getting ready to go into his swan song era, and like, you know, Suzuki's getting ready to go to like pro wrestling Fujiwara Gumi, and then he's going to go to Pancrase, and then he's going to become an MMA legend and, you know, beat Ken Shamrock and everything that follows after that, and then come back and be this madman that he is today. And it's like, you know, that investment's not there without the dojo system and the lore that's produced from it. Like, that's the kind of lore I like. I don't like fiend lore. I like dojo lore, you know?
Yes, the dojo lore is great, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing these new young lions and watching their journey, which started today at Corkin Hall on Summer Struggle show that happened this morning.
This is the third class of lions since we've started the show,
which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So these guys opened the show today. Fujita and, how do you say his last name again? Oiwa. So Fujita and Oiwa open up the show today. 10-minute time limit draw.
I was shocked. The idea that two young lions that debuted on the same day would go to a 10-minute draw. I mean, who could have seen that coming?
Right. I completely, you know, out of left field booking here for New Japan.
Yeah, this is quite a departure from Gato's, you know, normal booking. I thought Fujita was going to come out here and wreck Oiwa within like 86 seconds. You know? Pretend to shake his hand, hit him with the Uranagi, get the 1, 2, 3. You know,
big moment. Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that was Becky Lynch and and what's her face?
Bianca Belair.
Yeah.
We had a question from Domhoy 101. Any thoughts on the two newest young lions?
Guys, if you haven't seen Kosei Fujita versus Ryohei Oiwa. Do yourself a favor. Go watch this match. This is just my humble opinion. This is the best debut Young Lions match that I can ever recall having watched. And what I mean by that is two Young Lions debuting together. This was outstanding. I mean, you guys know that I've done some training, and like I'm sitting there watching them do particular things. I'm like, I should be doing it like that. Like, why haven't I thought to do these small little intricate things the way they're doing them? Like, this looked like a shoot, you know?
Bro, that's what I do. As soon as I started watching and the way they're grappling, like, I was like, are these guys shooting on each other? Like, the wrestling was just so fluid and seamless. Also, you can see, that national amateur wrestling background coming into play here. Like, their wrestling was just so smooth. And like you mentioned, yeah, this is probably one of the best debuts that we've seen as for Young Lions, two Young Lions going against each other.
Guys, please don't misunderstand when I say this. We adore Tsuji. We adore Yumura. I am not shitting on them in any way. I'm not telling you that these guys are better than they are current day. That's not what I'm saying. Obviously, Tsuji and Yumura are probably light years beyond these guys right now. But what I will say is we were doing this podcast when Tsuji and Yumura made their debut, and we were pretty impressed. But this match with Fujita and Oiwa was way beyond where Tsuji and Yumura started when they made their debut. I mean, way past it.
Yeah, these guys are busting out Kimuras. You don't really see Young Lions doing like Kimuras a lot and arm bars.
Bro, one of them hit a bridging like suplex like right off the gate as soon as the match started.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, that's different. But like the transitions, man, they were so fast. Like the sit outs were just so crisp and so fast, and the standing switches, everything about the way they moved, I was like, man, they move the way that real wrestlers move. And
yeah, and the crazy thing is they've only been in the dojo for about 5 months.
That's it?
I think, right? Oh, hold on, not this April. Oh, maybe they were April. Yeah, because the trial was December 2020, and they started April 2021.
Holy crap, bro. Dude, I mean, like, I remember those matches that I made you watch with Fujinami and Ryuma Go, and, like, that's how these guys wrestle, like, that style, or, like, those kind of underappreciated, unheralded Kushida show matches. That's kind of how they wrestled. But it kind of reminded me of, like, Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Or, like, Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. Like, that's high praise, man. These guys really, I mean, they're throwbacks. I mean, I don't know which one's which at this point.
Right. Honestly, I'm still trying to learn which one is which as far as because they both have the shaved the buzz cut right now and are very similar stature.
Yeah, like with Yumura and Tsuji, you can kind of tell because of the size difference, but. Like, remember when Tsuji and Yumura both debuted? It was still hard because they were both so cut up at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tsuji and Yumura kind of filled out, and you're like, oh, Tsuji's a monster. But Fujita and Oiwa, I don't know what they're gonna. I can't wait for them to have different hairstyles so I can tell which one's which. But for the time being, I don't know who's which. But all I know is like, man, they really had an awesome match. And then after it was like. Anything you can do, I could do better. It was just like hold, reversal, hold. Bro, they're drop kicks.
Yes, the drop kicks are great.
I know every Young Lion has a great drop kick, so that's nothing new. But like, they were awesome.
Yeah, I also found interesting like utilization of the half crab when we've mainly seen like the LA Dojo guys be the main ones that kind of use that half crab. Versus the double crab, but at one point, one of them did use half crab in the match. So that was interesting.
Bro, it's because they're fetishizing freaking
LA Dojo.
No, Lance Storm. They show a lot of Lance Storm with Canadian Maple Leaf. You know what I'm saying? They're like, this man won 3 WCW titles simultaneously. And they're like, oh, this shit works.
There are so many reasons not to skip breakfast. So many savory, mouth-watering, tasty, delicious beyond all belief reasons. Actually, that last one was pretty convincing. Stop by for a McDonald's breakfast. Mix and match a sausage biscuit, sausage McMuffin, sausage burrito, or hash browns, any two for just $2. Price and participation may vary, cannot be combined with combo meal.
There are a lot of choices when it comes to car shopping. Only Kelley Blue Book is your trusted resource for one-stop car shopping. Have confidence to price it, buy it, fix it, trade it, sell it, and love it when you KBB.com it. It's as easy to say as it is to use. Kelley Blue Book is the #1 most trusted third-party automotive site. So no matter what your it is, be empowered to nail it at KBB.com.
But yeah, great debut. Looking forward to watching the remainder of their matches this week. Dom Honey also had another question. What would the future look like for Katsuyori Kitamura if he would have stayed with the company?
I mean, it's hard to say because, I think the dojo system is a system that, for better or for worse, weeds out particular wrestlers, and I'm not saying they couldn't have made it or anything like that. I don't, wrestling's hard, man. I don't know everyone's particular situation, and we don't even still to this day fully know what happened with Kitamura. We heard stories of like a moped accident. He got really hurt.
His foot got messed up. Yeah.
But we don't know. I've seen some stuff online recently where he just looks incredible right now. So who knows? Maybe he could come back. At some point, I'm not really sure. But based on the way they were pushing him, it seemed as though they were investing in him as a major player for the future. That's what it seemed like. Right.
He got that big, challenge series, and he was facing off against some, big heavyweights, and seemed like, they were getting him reared up to, go on excursion and come back to be a big star.
Hey, you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
If you go back and you listen to the early, because when we started this show, they were in the middle of the
Young Lion Cup?
The Young Lions Cup 2017. And I was livid that Kawato lost to Katsuya Kitamura.
I don't remember that.
I wanted Kawato to beat Kitamura so bad, bro. I was all in on Kawato, bro. I thought he was because he'd been the man, and Kitamura only been with the company a much shorter time than him, and I know he bro, this guy was doing the jackhammer to people.
He was spear jackhammer.
His two moves were the spear and the jackhammer.
Yeah, dude, he was wrecking Young Lions.
Lion doing a jackhammer.
Who knows what the future would have been for him. Obviously, they had big things in plan.
IWGP World Champion, probably.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Or, upper, mid-card, top star. But, he's not here, and we have some great young lions on excursions, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens when guys like Tsuji and Yamura come back. Yeah,
I saw a big post from JCast this past week. They're like, what are some of the biggest what-ifs? I didn't put that in there, but now I'm thinking about it. The Katsuya Kitamura is probably a big what-if. Because, how many young lions ever came through the system, looking like him and, pushed like him?
Huge. Vascular.
Look at him. He's huge.
Oh, man. But, yeah. Who knows? Maybe he'll come back one day.
Probably not. He was old as fuck.
Old's down bad. But looking at the rest of this Cork and card here, we had
a bunch of stuff happen. There were some matches. Let's move on to the upcoming shows this week.
We had Wato and Kojima defeating Tiger Mask in Hanma. Kojima getting the pin over Hanma.
Which is lucky because now Wato and Kojima move up in the rankings as the premier junior heavyweight mixed tag team. I don't know if you heard the rumors, but next year they're actually planning to institute a third tag team title.
Open weight tag title?
No, it's strictly junior heavy. So you have to have a junior and a heavy tag team member on each side.
So we're gonna have a Super Junior Heavy tag league.
Yeah, Super Junior Heavy tag tournament. It's only a tournament. It's not a league. It's single elimination.
Nah,
it's actually gonna happen. It's gonna happen at the same time as New Japan Cup. It's gonna be a 16-team tournament.
Nah, knowing them, it'll probably be a league.
Hiromu Takahashi and Shingo are gonna fuck everybody up.
Bro, that would be awesome. Following that match, we had Chase Owens and Jado defeating Taguchi and Yano by disqualification. Yano got a kendo stick and was going into a deathmatch Yano mode and beat the crap out of Owens and Jado with a kendo stick and got disqualified.
Yeah.
Then the semi-main event, we had the United Empire, Great Okan and Jeff Cobb defeating the team of Hiroshi Tenzan and Kazuchika Okada. Cobb getting the pin on Tenzan. Also, they're building up for the Cobb-Okada match at Wrestle Grand Slam Night 1. So, good seeing those guys mix it up again.
Towards the tail end of the match, Jeff Cobb hit Okada with a giant kneeling tombstone pile driver.
Yeah.
Which kind of eliminated Okada from, being a factor in the match. And the remainder of the match, he was on the outside just kind of getting his neck iced. I wonder if that's going to be a story, especially the idea that Jeff Cobb stole that move from Okada. And then if you notice when Khan hit Tenzan with the Tour of the Islands, he did a ripcord before it, sort of like a Rainmaker. So it was sort of like a little tease or an allusion to the Rainmaker there. So yeah, interesting stuff. Also, there's always the old country beef between Okan and Tenzan.
Right, yeah, both of them, the whole Mongolian chop feud they had earlier this year, and of course there was a Mongolian chop exchange between those two guys.
No, Tenzan does not do Mongolian chops. He does something else.
He does Japanese chops.
Yeah, he does. The overhand Japanese chops are different than Mongolian chops. They're not the same.
It's different.
They actually have a name for it, but, this is why the Never Committee would never put up with this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. The Never Committee keeps up with its stipulations.
The Never Committee would have gone to the board of directors and had Tenzan's license revoked for not adhering to the stipulation of the match.
Yeah, Tenzan, he'd be done. He'd be out of territory.
He'd be a AEW style manager, just an old, representing. He'd just be out here representing Kojima and shit,
Yeah.
Well, that's what New Japan needs to, do that. Bring back some of these olds and let them be managers.
Bring back Sano. Have him out here managing people.
Sano?
Yeah.
Who's Sano?
Isn't that the dude that wrestled?
Oh, Naoki Sano?
Yeah.
Why do you want Naoki Sano to be a manager?
I don't know. That was the first old name that came to my head.
Oh, man.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I'm tired of these old juniors being the managers. We need Chono to be a manager. Bring back Monster Morning. Why can't? What about the Wild Man? Freaking what's his face?
Romero?
No, not him. From Suzuki-gun.
Iska.
Yeah, Iska could be a manager.
I think he'd be too out of control as a manager.
No, he'd be just out of control enough. And then when they do crossovers with AEW, we could have manager face-offs. Jake Roberts and Iska go face to face.
Tully Blanchard and who could Tully go up against?
Arn Anderson and Liger just going nose to nose.
Oh man. Yeah, let's move on to the main event here. So the main event was Chaos team of Hiroki Goto, Robbie Eagles, and Yoshihashi defeating the Suzuki-gun team of Doki, Taichi, and Zack Sabre Jr. So Goto gets a win over Doki. Tried to do a post-match attack on Goto, but Yoshihashi came in and made the save. Building here for the tag title match that will be happening at Wrestle Grand Slam. The three-way with Goto, Yoshihashi against Tekkers, against Sonata, and Naito.
Yeah, good main event. Didn't overstay its welcome. 23 minutes, perfect amount of time. Everybody got time to shine. Like you mentioned, they're building to that three-way IWGP heavyweight tag team match. We don't get a lot of three-ways for the heavyweight tag titles. It's usually the junior titles, so that's kind of cool. But, Goto and Yoshihashi were putting the work in on Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. They whipped that ass.
Yeah, they did.
Eagles and Doki looked really good, but the surprising sequences that impressed me were Goto and Doki. And the crazy thing about it was Doki was fucking up Goto for most of this match.
Bro, I told you, this man's trying to get in the G1. He sees all them open spots. He's like, I'm taking one.
Yeah, bro. Like, he was really putting it on Goto. I'm like, man, this man Goto. Like, I don't know what happened. They must have all been like playing cards backstage and like, all right, what do you bet? Like, you're all out of chips, Goto. What do you bet? Like, you have nothing. He's like, deal me another hand. And like, you don't have anything else to bet. He's like, all right, if I lose this hand, Doki can get 5 minutes of offense on this match against me. Like, all right. And then Goto obviously lost. He put down a full house and someone had a royal flush and he was like, fuck.
Yeah, that must have happened in the Bullet Club feud too, because remember he got messed up by Taiji Ishimori during that feud.
No. He got beat by Taiji Ishimori.
Yeah, like two or three times.
But Doki was like really putting it on Goto. But ultimately, Goto, used his seniority and his politicking to keep this man Doki down at the ground level.
Oh man, one day Doki will bust through this glass ceiling.
This man Doki's trying to break out. And the old guard Hiroki Goto trying to keep him down.
Doki's part of that new generation.
I can't wait for Doki to like cut a promo where he's like, when I think about what you and all your old friends did to keep me down, it makes me sick to my stomach. Yeah, we'll just punish Doki. Good old Doki. He'll rise to the occasion. He'll come back later. He can take the punishment. He's like, you want me to study the game? I am the fucking game.
Oh man. But let's run through the rest of the Summer Struggle shows for this week.
I don't know why I like Doki so much tonight.
Because Doki's a man.
Yeah.
So tomorrow's show, Wednesday, August 25th, we're going to have another matchup between Fujita and Oiwa. And then we'll have match number 2, Bullet Club's cutest tag team, ELP and Taiji, will be taking on the Sugun team of Doki and Minnow Suzuki. Third matchup, we're going to have Togi Makabe and Toru Yano versus Chase Owens and Jado. Then the semi-main event, we're going to have Kazuchika Okada and Tomioka Hanma versus United Empire. And then the main event, we're going to have an 8-man tag elimination match with the Chaos team of Goto, Robbie Eagles, Yoshihashi teaming up with Tiger Mask to take on the Suzuki-gun team of Desperado Taichi, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Zack Sabre Jr. Then the next day, on Thursday, August 26th, once again, Fujita and Oiwa will lock it up. Then we'll have Tenzan and Wato against Eagles and Hanma. Third matchup, we're going to have Goto, Yoshihashi, and Tiger Mask against Doki and the Dangerous Tekkers. Semi-main event, Despi, Suzuki, and Kanemaru against ELP, Jado, and Taiji. And then the main event will be Kazuchika Okada and Satoshi Kojima against the United Empire. And then on Friday, August 27th, once again, the fourth matchup between Fujita and Oiwa. Then we'll have Goto, Yoshihashi, and Taguchi against Suzuki, Taichi, and Zack Sabre Jr. Third matchup, Okada and Makabe versus United Empire. Then the semi-main event, singles match, Robbie Eagles versus Master Wato. And the main event that we talked about earlier, Ticking Time Bomb, Hiromu Takahashi makes his in-ring return to take on Doki.
Any chance that Fujita or Oiwa pin one another or beat one another this week?
If I was a betting man, I would bet that these guys have 3 more draws this week.
One thing we forgot to mention, Nakashima, the other young lion from this class that had debuted and then injured his arm in that match against Yumura earlier this year, he was on the outside during their debut match. And they kept panning in on him and mentioning his name, Yuto Nakashima. That's his name. And you know what? It probably to the listener, it sounds like I read his name, but you can confirm looking at me in the thing. I'm not even reading it. I just remember.
It's off the dome.
Yeah, off the dome, but Yuto Nakashima. So seems like he's probably getting ready to make a return as well. During the main event, there was a moment where he got kind of brutalized a little bit by Taichi, I noticed. So, I know he had like a shoulder separation or dislocation, something like that. And, I don't think they could touch him and pull a shirt off and throw him into the barricade if he wasn't ready to go. So you kind of got to wonder if he, when he's going to kind of make his return and kind of make a play. Also, I mean, is Gabe Kidd still considered a Lion? We haven't heard from him in a while. It's going to be interesting when he comes back and he's like, whoa, where's Suji Nomura? Who are these guys?
Right.
And why is it so easy to beat all three of them?
Yeah, that man's his win-loss record is going to be racked up.
Oh, Gabe Kidd's going to be, 2022, Keepin It Strong Style year-end awards, he's going to be the Young Lion of the Year, like, no doubt.
Hands down.
Hands down. He's going to fuck everybody up. If they do a Young Lion Cup, they better not, because he's going to go undefeated.
But yeah, and Yuto, yeah, like you mentioned, there's a lot of like camera shots on him, so I'm sure he'll be back in action pretty soon. Probably get in the mix with Fujita and Oiwa, and we'll get a little three-way rivalry with those guys.
So it sounds like we got a lot of matches, but nothing really matters till the 27th is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, those two big singles matches. Yeah, Eagles and Wato, Takahashi and Doki. Obviously, I'm expecting Eagles to defeat Wato, Takahashi to defeat Doki. Kind of warm-up matches for them heading into Wrestle Grand Slam.
Is it going to be like a double gold dash situation where Wato and Doki got to fight each other for the consolation prize at the end?
Could be. I mean, they need to fill out those cards still, so why not? Wato versus Doki, run it back.
Yo, Wato can get this work from Doki.
Yeah, Doki get that win back.
Hold this chokey. You know what I'm saying?
Hold this pipe. But let's hop back over to New Japan of America, talk about this past Friday's episode of Strong. We had Summer Struggle in the USA Night 1. Show opened up. We had, hold on, looks like I copied.
I was going to say, this does not look right. I do not remember Juice Robinson, Leo Rush, or Brody King wrestling on this show.
Yeah, my bad. I copied next week's card twice here on the rundown.
You know what? I know exactly what happened. The Drama King, Matt something. What's his name?
Morris.
Matt Morris wrestled Alex Coughlin in his challenge series.
Yes, he did. Yeah, that was the opening match. Yeah, what did you think about the debut of the former Ada English, now Matt Morris?
He's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty basic matchup. I wasn't, I mean, he really didn't do anything out of this world to be like, man, he needs to stick around. But I mean, it was a solid match. He ended up winning, defeats Coughlin 8 minutes and 32 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything where I was like blown away, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, it was passable. I guess it's kind of similar to how I felt about Fred Rosser when he first sort of made the debut. I think I'm a little wary anytime like a well-known kind of like WWE guy, who kind of came through that system, kind of makes their debut. But at the same time, it's very interesting to sort of see Alex Coughlin get this, these different looks, these different experiences as he's kind of going through this like challenge series, which probably is inevitably leading to his graduation, much like Clark Connors and Carl Fredericks.
Right, yeah, this is definitely kind of an interesting matchup for him. But yeah, always good to see Coughlin get these opportunities. I thought he looked great. Morris looked fine. I mean, I would really be, clamoring for them to bring him back. But good match here for Coughlin. Second matchup, we had Clark Connors, Ren Narita, and TJP defeat the team of a debuting Red Def, Daniel Garcia, Fred Rosser, and Fred Yehai. So continuing to build the rivalry here between Ren Narita and Fred Rosser. We're going to have a big singles match coming up. And then also we got this debut of Daniel Garcia, who's been tearing it up on the independent scene and in AEW lately.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot to add to that. I mean, it was just interesting to sort of see this collection of talent. I mean, if it was a couple years ago, you kind of looked at where these guys were, and some of them, like, for instance, Clark Connors and Ren Narita, we might not even know who they were. But, I mean, it's just so weird to see this convergence of different talent and all their background and see them, like, kind of meeting here. I mean, this is kind of an example of, like, a open door, forbidden door sort of match. I mean, just look at where everybody came from. It's so weird.
Yeah. And Daniel Garcia and Freddie Ryohei, those are two guys I would think would fit in perfectly with Team Filthy. I know Ryohei was a part of Team Filthy in MLW, but both of those guys, great grapplers. I think they fit in more of Team Filthy than the West Coast Wrecking Crew, which we'll talk about in a second.
I disagree a little bit. I think Fred Ryohei definitely does, but I don't agree when it comes to Daniel Garcia. I see him as like a technical specimen when it comes to like professional wrestling, but he doesn't seem to have that gritty, hard-hitting sort of MMA influence. And maybe that's just my observation. I actually haven't seen as much of his work as other people have.
Yeah, I know a lot of the stuff I see is all it's really, grapple heavy based, but yeah, he doesn't really have kind of like the MMA style background. But I mean, neither does West Coast Wrecking Crew.
Well, I would say Jarrell Nelson doesn't fit that bill, but Royce Isaacs
That's
does.
right. Yeah, he's done Bloodsport. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean he's trained extensively. I mean him and Chris Dickinson, they've mentioned on the air that they're like training partners, and he really can, work that style. But they don't tend to work that style as the West Coast Wrecking Crew, so they kind of seem a little bit as like an odd fit with that group. I liked Tyler Russ better.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe he'll be back once his 30 days are up.
What was his name? Russ Taylor?
I'm getting them mixed up. What? I think it's Russ Tyler.
I don't know which one he was anymore.
Neither do I.
Have you ever seen the movie Enemy?
No.
We watched the movie Enemy last night with Jake Gyllenhaal. Weird movie. Similar concept,
Just not remembering things?
No. Like it's about like Jake Gyllenhaal, but he's two different people, but you don't know which one's which and what's going on. It's like really hard to decipher what's really happened. I kind of feel like that with Tyler Russ Taylor.
Yeah, he'll be one of those things, and maybe he'll show back up once his 30 days no compete is up.
He's basically Jake Gyllenhaal in Enemy.
We mentioned the West Coast Wrecking Crew. They were in the main event here, accompanied by JR Kratos. They got the win back over Violence Unlimited's Brody King and Dirty Daddy Chris Dickinson, 951. Avenged the loss from the Tag Team Turbulence tour, and things are paying off for them being a part of Team Filthy.
I liked this match a lot better than the Tag Team Turmoil match. It just seemed to kind of mesh a little bit better. Makes sense. Second time with the two teams working together and a little bit more clearly defined roles and motivations. And yeah, I thought this was a good main event. It's weird. Like, this whole show wasn't one where I was watching it thinking like, man, this is blow away. But the sum of its parts, when you add them all together, like, it's just such a good, solid wrestling show.
Yeah, and definitely, planting seeds for future stuff. Also, we had the Coughlin series. They're doing stuff with Narita and Fred Rosser. And then this Team Filthy, Violence Unlimited feud has been going on for a while now. And it's going to continue leading up to some of the Strong tapings that happened already. So some story development, things happening. Good episode of Strong. Next week, this week, I should say, August 27th, we're going to have a main event of Juice Robinson, Leo Rush, Brody King, and Chris Dickinson, once again taking on Team Filthy of Tom Lawler, JR Kratos, Jarrell Nelson, and Royce Isaacs. In the semi-main event, the Alpha Wolf Carl Fredericks will be taking on Alexander James, and then the opener will see Wheeler Utah, Adrian Quest, and the DKC taking on I think they're called the Stray Dogs now, Bateman, Mysterioso, and Barrett Brown.
Interesting lineup. Looks like a pretty good show. Should be.
Yeah. So now
I'm ready for these live shows.
yeah, the show with fans. Hopefully those will be starting soon. Because that's going to bring so much life and energy to those shows. Now we have some other news items to go over real quick. Yuya Uemura gave his first post-graduation interview that is up on njpw1972.com. You can check that out. There's also a interview with Yo called the Roppongi Showdown, where Yo rewatches the footage of Show turning on him and kind of gives an interview and starts talking about, the cracks and when did they happen and all this stuff, and kind of setting up, the big feud between Show and Yo. And it kind of sounds like they might end up wrestling at Wrestle Grand Slam. Did you see any of this?
I was watching this literally just prior to us recording, and boy, is this guy Yo sad.
Yeah, this man's depressed.
This man is hurt to his core. He is so sad. So, yeah, and the interesting thing he kept mentioning is that Show refused to do the interview.
Yeah. So, yeah, Show refusing to talk, so it's been, all Yo and kind of, getting his feeling and vantage point of everything that went down. And, yeah, interesting thing here for this feud. And, yeah, it looks like the first matchup, like I said, might be Wrestle Grand Slam. The interview was tagged with WGS, so that's what I'm thinking here. And, yeah, and a lot of people were thinking maybe it'll wait till Super Juniors, but yeah, it might happen sooner than we think.
This is just the first dance.
Next thing here, like we mentioned earlier, Minnow Suzuki is coming to the U.S. for the Strong tapings. He's also going to be making some other shots. He's going to be coming to GCW, doing some dates for them there. First, he'll be appearing at the Highest in the Room on Friday, September 17th. Which is in LA, no opponent named yet. Then in Get Lost a Lot, Friday, September 24th, in the Melrose Ballroom in Queens, New York, he'll be facing off against Homicide. Yes, Suzuki versus Homicide.
Yeah, Megan's super disappointed because she's actually going to be in that area on that weekend. And earlier this year, or actually last year, Suzuki was supposed to wrestle for GCW WrestleMania weekend against one Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
And there have been many times where she's been like, when is Suzuki going to wrestle Orange Cassidy? And I'm like, I don't know if that match is ever going to happen again. But then once it was announced, like I told her, I was like, hey, it's announced that like he's doing these shots for GCW. And she's like, is he wrestling Orange Cassidy? And she was like, if he wrestles Orange Cassidy September 24th, I will literally make my way out there for that show. And then today I had to tell her, like, he's wrestling Homicide. And she was like, who? So, yeah.
Oh, man.
It's not a show. I don't think she's going to want to go out there. And, I don't think Matt Cardona is going to be, enough to...
Not a draw for her?
Yeah. Actually, I don't even know if I don't think a lot of people know about the stuff he's been doing.
Right.
I only know about the stuff he's been doing because Ghoul Wrestling fan Dan Coffin has been keeping me up to date.
But also for GCW, he'll be there Sunday, October 10th for a show named To Be Announced and his opponent To Be Announced. And then October 23rd, a show To Be Announced, which is also going to be in LA. Then for PWX All Hail the King, October 2nd, he's going to be taking on Anthony Henry, just recently released from WWE, a guy that we're familiar with here on the Florida scene from FIP.
That match sounds awesome. Yeah, I earlier today got a message, private message from one Chris Things, a.k.a. Chris Bryan of the podcast Grown Men Watch This Shit. And he was like, man, this Suzuki indie run is really something, huh? And I was like, if only we had an independent wrestling podcast that could discuss such things. And he's like, this maybe calls for us to, record some content for you guys. So, but man, I mean, that's a lot of really, really great, shows with some awesome matchups that have been announced. And like this man, Suzuki's not wrestling on his laurels. Like he's like, oh, I'm in America. Y'all getting ready to pay me. Like,
yeah. And then his last announced date, West Coast Pros, No Leaf Clover, their third anniversary show, October 8th. He'll be taking on Daniel Garcia.
Yeah, that's another one that like sounds awesome. But you know what? The thing is, like, not that Suzuki can't wrestle, because he definitely can. But I mean, it's very rare that we see someone push him to be mat-based and ground-based, and I'm not sure how he can avoid that wrestling against a guy like Daniel Garcia. And then conversely, like Daniel Garcia is not a guy that you see having wars, striking and everything like that. He's probably going to have to kind of go into that element a little bit, facing Suzuki. So for Daniel Garcia, I mean, that's probably going to be one of the biggest like matches he's had so far in his career. And I mean, that's a huge test. I mean, that's like a real man match.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough night for Mr. Garcia, but should be, kind of a great, platform for him. If the match goes off well, continue to elevate his stock in the world of wrestling. And, with Suzuki being in the U.S. and he's going to be in New York around the time of AEW's Wrestle Grand Slam in Arthur Ashe Stadium, one has to think maybe the Forbidden Door will be open and we'll hear Kosei Ray on TNT.
That's one of those things where I was really kind of questioning it. I heard the reports where Dave was alleging that, that they were pushing to have Tanahashi and Jon Moxley wrestle at All Out. And I mean, I think we've said this on this podcast, but anybody that's kind of in the know knew that there's no way for Tanahashi to wrestle at All Out, just given the time frame related to the G1 once the G1 was, announced.
Right. Yeah. I just don't. I just feel like that. We talked about it before. I feel like that Mox Tanahashi match is going to happen in Japan.
It could happen in Japan. It might happen in AEW because they've kind of made some allusions to that. But either way, But the thing with the report that he was putting was that, plans had changed. And that like Tanahashi wasn't able to kind of stay because like New Japan made a decision, but it seemed pretty clear to me that he was always planned to go back to Japan just based on the timing. But if the rumor was that he was, that Mox was going to wrestle somebody from New Japan at that show, Suzuki seems like a prime candidate. The other prime candidate, maybe Tomohiro Ishii, if that's even the route that they're going.
Yeah, Ishii has not been on the cards. I mean, if he's in Japan, he would be doing the 2-week quarantine and what. He wouldn't be on this week's cards, or he could still be here in the U.S., wrestle Mox at All Out, and then catch a plane to be back in time to quarantine for G1.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping he just goes to Japan and, does the quarantine. He's just ready to work and be there. And I'm hoping that Suzuki does end up sort of being the opponent for Jon Moxley for All Out, because he doesn't really have like an ongoing active feud currently in AEW. And that match was so well received amongst everybody, but especially the American audience last year when they wrestled in New Japan. And so to kind of run that series back in AEW, I bet you they'd get an incredible reaction. Plus Suzuki's so over in America, and even for those who aren't familiar with him, I mean, look at what happened when they like debuted Kingston. Nobody knew who he was, and he got over very, very quickly. I think if you bring Suzuki into AEW, even for the uninitiated, like the guy's just an incredible character. Like people are gonna get invested almost immediately.
Yeah, I also think there's potential to do a tag match of him and Archer. Last week on Dynamite, Archer got beat down 2-on-1 by the Men of the Year, All Eagle Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. So you could have Suzuki come in as a backup, run Suzuki-gun versus the Men of the Year.
Yeah, Suzuki and Archer have both kind of like made sort of like jokes online about how Archer's never actually left Suzuki-gun. And Archer even mentioned, kind of like in his mind, he still represents Suzuki-gun in AEW. He's still a member.
Yeah.
So, I mean, bro, that'd be so cool to see them, like, teaming again.
Yeah. Well, if we don't get it in AEW, we'll probably get it on those Texas Strong tapings.
Or both.
Yeah, that would be a great. So another guy that's going to be wrestling some indie shots, our good friend Rocky Romero. He's been added to Defy's Leviathan, which is happening August 27th and 28th at the historic Washington Hall in Seattle. He'll face Josh Alexander on night 1, and then he'll have a surprise opponent on night 2.
I can't say who his surprise opponent on night 2 is, but what I can give you this hint, his favorite drink is Pepsi.
Oh man, don't get the Seattle area fans hyped up.
Also, I want to let you know that he is drug free. That's all I can say though, without giving it away.
Another New Japan guy wrestling on the Indies this past week was Switchblade Jay White, defeating Sam Adonis at Warrior Wrestling at one of their Stadium Series show. So Jay doing some indie dates here in the U.S. as well as while he's here. Then an update on Brody King. You know, he got pulled from Resurgence, and we were kind of questioning what happened, but he did reveal that he did test positive for COVID-19. He is vaccinated, so seems to be doing all right. And so once he is cleared to go, I think he'll be back on New Japan Strong tapings.
Yeah, good to hear that he's doing well. Yeah.
Then also this past weekend, we had Rev Pro's 9-year anniversary, 2 big matchups featuring New Japan guys. We had the Rev Pro Undisputed British Heavyweight title being defended. Will Ospreay defended against Doug Williams, defeated him 16 minutes and 58 seconds. And then we had the main event, the British Heavyweight title. Ricky Knight Jr. defeated Shota Umino. Youngboy, did you see the video going around of Will Ospreay's reception at Rev Pro?
I haven't watched anything. I saw that he came in with the World IWGP title, quote unquote, the lineal strap. And I heard that they announced him as the undefeated IWGP World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch the whole video, but it didn't sound like the Rev Pro fan base was thrilled that Ospreay was back in Rev Pro and that he was there. You know, a complete opposite homecoming to what Mr. CM Punk got.
Is that due to the Me Too allegation, or not Me Too, but the
speaking out
allegations?
I think so, yeah.
Because I'm just thinking, like, I haven't put the timeline together, but like since that happened, he hasn't worked in front of a British crowd, has he?
No.
That makes, that British wrestling scene with that particular niche fan base, they know way more about everything that's kind of gone on, more so than anybody else, and it's a very small knit community. I wouldn't be surprised if he did receive a bad reception, and you know that there is a lot of like kind of bad feelings, bad blood, you know, within that community, regardless of his, you know, guilt or not.
Right. So, and last thing here, the free match of the week on New Japan is Kazuchika Okada against Shinsuke Nakamura from the G1 24 Finals.
Awesome match.
Now we're going to move into some questions here, recommended match of the week, and get out of here. So first question comes from Reddit user Ninetails, says, is Kevin Kelly doing live English commentary the most exciting thing about this year's G1, bearing in mind the field hasn't been announced yet?
For me, it's a close second. The most exciting thing right now is who the hell's going to be in this G1?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. I see tons of posts on Reddit and Twitter of people trying to figure out, you know, who's going to be in the G1 this year, especially with, you know, Ospreay, Suzuki, Jay White, Finjuice all here in the U.S. Seems like there's a lot of holes to fill up. I am very excited for Kevin doing live English every day. That will be great. But yeah, seeing who fills out the field is going to be very interesting. And I know a lot of people seem to be down on the G1 with a lot of these guys missing. But honestly, right. I think Ospreay and Suzuki, honestly, from a match quality standpoint, are probably the two major losses. You know, with Jay, they're usually running some kind of story. His matches aren't always the best. I mean, Jay's an awesome wrestler. I love Jay, but, you know, we've seen what he does in G1 sometimes. And then Juice, I mean, Finley's never been in the G1, and Juice kind of just, you know, does what Juice does. So I think that we're only losing two really high-level workers, and I think we're still going to have a great G1.
Yeah, those are definitely great points as far as it relates to, you know, the layout of who is and isn't going to be in it. I think that the big thing, though, is, like you said, people are down, and I think one of the reasons they're down is they're assuming that the replacements are going to be lower caliber than, you know, who was going to be in it. But I'm kind of thinking, like, I don't think that New Japan would do that, especially with, you know, the issues they've had with business. Even today, like, there's so few people at Cork and Hall, you know?
Right.
It's really incumbent on them to produce a good G1. It's the G1. It's, like, literally, like, their bread and butter. And with some of those comments Tanahashi made about, like, exciting things being on the way, I wouldn't be surprised if they included some necessary outside domestic names from, I don't know, the Japanese indies, maybe like Big Japan is a possibility, All Japan, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they could do that. We've been talking about that for a while now, opening that, you know, domestic Forbidden Door, working with companies there. Also, I mean, there's some potential juniors like Hiromu Takahashi that they could pull in as well.
Yeah, that's an option as well. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be all like Hanmas and
Tenzons.
Yujiros and Tenzons. Yeah, they have some other options.
Next question from our user fit_beautiful2638 says, my question, what's Gabriel Kidd up to? Did he graduate?
We haven't heard anything about it. You know, but is it impossible that like they make an announcement? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been an official announcement of his graduation. It could be one of those things he probably maybe went home for a little bit. But I would expect him to be graduating pretty soon. I mean, he was in that same class with Suji and Nomura.
Sort of. I mean, he kind of came after them, but yeah.
Right, and he was LA Dojo too. He wasn't in Nogai Dojo.
He's in a weird situation because he was a quote-unquote LA Dojo guy, but I felt like he spent more of his time in Nogai, probably mostly because of the pandemic, but,
right.
You know, what turned into like a couple-week like trip, you know, became like a year or so thing.
Right. Next question from EMJ Does PR. Do you guys do anything special to prepare to cover the G1?
Pray.
Oh, man.
Not really. I mean, for me, schedule is the most important thing.
Right, yeah, just laying out when the shows are going to happen and when you're going to watch them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like the first year being like 6 days behind and having to like binge them all because, you know, I didn't really know how to manage my time. The idea of watching that many matches was so foreign. And to me, like, even though I've been a big, you know, New Japan fan for a long time, I've never sat and watched an entire G1. Now this can be like our fourth time doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but really just being aware of the schedule, being aware of like what time we have to give to watching it, and then, you know, I don't watch the undercard matches for the most part.
Well, I mean, last year we had no undercard due to COVID, and I'm assuming we're probably not going to have an undercard again this year. So yeah, just having to watch the 5 G1 matches it's great.
It is great. But as far as like prepping, like, I don't know, I don't do any really like studying or, you know, information accumulation or anything like that.
Right. I mean, Voices of Wrestling always does a great job of putting out a big preview, and we will have Chris Stamps on the show and go over stats and numbers and win-loss records depending on who's on what block and stuff like that.
We do typically put in the work to create our annual prediction competition.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
one thing
contest.
we do. Yeah. But it's been so long, you know, it seems like we only do 2 a year now.
Yeah. Next question here from Hawaiian Punch BV says the lineal NJPW Strong Champion Shoeface will be making his second title defense against Emilio Sordi this weekend in PFL.
What? I don't know who either of those two fighters is.
I think that Shoeface is not the guy that I guess he lost. I guess he beat Filthy Tom in the MMA fight.
Yeah, but I didn't watch that fight.
Neither did I.
I don't watch PFL.
Then he asked for thoughts on Woodley versus Paul. Most likely scenario, Paul gets the knockout or Woodley circles away forever to lose a decision.
I don't know, man. I'm not that impressed with either Logan or Jake Paul. So, you know, I almost put money on Ben Askren last time. You know, part of me, like, just the logic and reasoning is like, even though, yeah, Ben Askren wasn't a great striker and he was primarily a wrestler, I'm like, he spent so many years around striking that he could probably beat this guy, Jake Paul. Obviously he didn't. But you know what? There was 2 moments in that Jake Paul match where he kind of like snuck some early shots in on him, and I was like, oh my God, a real boxer would fuck up Jake Paul. I know Tyron Woodley's not that guy, but like, based on the knockout power he's displayed in the past, I think there's a really good chance he does knock out Jake Paul. I hope he has good coaches and has been doing, putting in the hours, doing the right things. I don't know, but part of me wants to put money on Woodley.
Hey, get that VOW code.
The other part of me wants to figure out how to gamble because I don't really know how to do it.
Neither do I. Last set of questions here from Dom Homie 101. First, he says, if you had to pick one, who would you guys rather see as a world champion in 2021? Goldberg or Evil?
Goldberg, always Goldberg.
Yeah, give me 5-minute squash match. Goldberg is champ.
I love Goldberg, so you're not gonna hear any Goldberg slander from me.
His next question: what are your guys' thoughts on this year's Summerfest, aka SummerSlam event that took place last Saturday? Has the tribal chief surpassed the leader of the Sikh Nation as the greatest of all time? LOL.
I refuse to answer this question.
Yeah, SummerSlam, I'll just say, is probably one of the worst SummerSlams of all time.
Bro, but like, that's such a mixed thing to say. Like, so many people liked that SummerSlam show. I saw it getting like B ratings all over the place.
Yeah, some of the bigger like news outlets are giving it B's and stuff like that, and of course a lot of people will see the large attendance and all the the fancy stats and numbers they'll throw out there, but from a wrestling quality booking standpoint, it was trash.
Bro, John Cena bumps on his elbows the entire time he wrestles. And I've been rewatching him wrestle, and like he always puts his elbows and his forearm down before he bumps.
Yeah, I've always noticed that he always bumps weird.
Bro, that you can literally like break your like shit doing that. Like, that's really, you'll break your wrist or your forearm or your elbow. Like, yeah, having like never wrestled before, I never noticed, but after wrestling, because that's actually something I have a problem with sometimes. So I'm very keenly aware of like when someone does it, I'm like, oh, that looks wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah,
very, very awkward in the ring. But
here's the other weird thing: Cena, the face, still John Cena, but the hair and the body, not John Cena.
That man needs to call up Jericho for the plugs.
For the plugs, then he needs to call out to someone, not whoever Jericho's been talking to, but talk to someone to help him get in shape, man. Like, I don't know. I'm not used to seeing John Cena not look jacked.
I mean, he was still, he was
decent.
decent.
Saying it. No. He needs to call The Rock.
The
Rock's doing it right.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the recent fight that took place between Manny Pacquiao and Ugas?
Okay, I will say this. Last week, I mentioned I was asked who I thought was going to win, and I said Manny Pacquiao most likely. I will also say this. I was not aware of who Ugas was. I wasn't aware of many facts about him. Once I did my research, obviously I didn't have time to re-record a new response, but Jeremy was there. Jeremy, all night during SummerSlam this past weekend, who did I say was going to win that fight?
You thought Pacquiao was going to win.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
You don't remember? Like, the whole night, I kept saying, like, oh, God, Pacquiao's going to lose tonight.
Well, I thought you were watching it and you were like, oh, my gosh, where he fell or whatever.
Yeah, I did. But, like, earlier in the night, all night, I was complaining. Man, you don't listen to me. Anyways.
Oh, man.
You guys can ask Rich. I'm sure Rich heard me.
I was too busy eating that delicious buffalo chicken dip that your girlfriend made.
Oh, you like the chicken dip? I'll let Megan know that you like the chicken dip.
Compliments to the chef.
I got this man a white cake.
Yeah, so that's what I requested.
for his birthday, But no, man. Okay, so I looked into it and I saw Ugas and I was like, oh shit, he's a rangy outside fighter. He's bigger than Pacquiao and he's Cuban. Fuck. Once I figured all that out, because in my mind I didn't know who Ugas was, and I saw he had a loss, and I saw that he, had never fought championship material. That's all I heard just looking at his Wikipedia last week, and that's kind of why I thought I don't know. I thought maybe he was a brawly Mexican fighter, and that Pacquiao might be able to beat him. But once I looked into his credentials and his fight style, and I watched some YouTube videos on him, I was like, oh no, he's gonna fuck up Pacquiao. And that's exactly what he did. Last thing about that fight, Ugas, just beautiful utilization of the jab, and then that outside right hook. He utilized the correct game plan to shut down Manny Pacquiao. It's kind of crazy.
So a follow-up to that, he also asks, with the career of Manny Pacquiao looking like it's coming to an end, what's the legacy of Manny Pacquiao's boxing career? Where does he rank among the all-time greats?
Man, we don't have enough time for me to go over all of that in depth, but what I'll say in a quick soundbite, Manny Pacquiao, the only ever 8-division world champion in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and then now the 2020s, one of the only fighters to ever win world championships in 4 different decades. The fighter of the decade in the 2010s. Manny Pacquiao is one of the absolute greatest pound-for-pound fighters of all time. For me, he's a top 20 fighter based on his accomplishments alone, which, again, range through a multitude of weight classes. That's Manny Pacquiao's legacy. He's one of the greatest to ever do it.
And his last question, he says, can the young boy break down a fight between James Lightout Tony and Bernard the Executioner Hopkins at 160?
Jeez, that's a really, really, really tough fight to call. The only time I think that a fight like that could have maybe happened between these two is between 91 and 93. And at that point in time, I think James Toney probably beats Bernard Hopkins. But if you're going prime for prime, so for James Toney, that would be 1991. And then for Bernard Hopkins, you're talking 2001. Prime for prime at 160 is what I mean. I really don't know how that one plays out. The way James likes to fight, I think with a little bit older, more rangier Bernard Hopkins, it'd probably be a game of cat and mouse to some extent. But fuck, I really don't know. Those are two of the greatest at 160 ever, and to kind of consider what their styles, how they would line up, it's hard for me to see it. I would probably, by a slight edge, favor James Toney in that fight, as crazy as that sounds.
Nice. So now let's move on to recommended match of the week. So last week, Josh, you recommended an absolute banger between Tomohiro Ishii and Masato Tanaka for the Never Openweight Championship from 2013. And man, this match was just out of this world. This was, like you mentioned, you said you were looking for that Ishii high-level match at Resurgence, and the Moose match didn't quite get it. But yeah, this match, what was the match? Man, these guys, just the strike exchanges between these guys. It started off with a huge, the shoulder block exchange, and then the forearm exchanges, and I thought it was pretty funny at one point. Tanaka puts a headlock on Ishii, God, I just smashed him with a big forearm, nah, we ain't wrestling, we brawling. And just the sequences, the chop and elbow exchanges, Ishii getting busted open. They had a table at one point in the match where Tanaka does a huge body splash through the table to Ishii, which reminds me of Ishii doing the Jon Moxley in the G1. So that was a cool little moment to see there. And yeah, your typical, no selling spots here with the Germans between these guys. I was very surprised that Tanaka ends up getting the win here. He kicked out of Ishii's brainbuster. I thought it was the finish. I was like, hit him with the brainbuster. I was like, all right, Ishii, 1, 2, and this man Tanaka kicks out. Eventually hits him with a sliding elbow, gets the win here. Man, this match was incredible.
Bro, Ishii, did I not tell you Ishii's face got messed up?
Yeah, his face got jacked up in this match.
Yeah, at the end of the sickening thing about this match is the headbutts.
Oh yeah, several. They did the whole thing where on their referee position, just bashing their heads over and over again. Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, that stuff's really, really brutal. The match is excellent. I knew who was going to win, and I went and rewatched it, and I still got caught on the brainbuster because I'm so accustomed to that being a very protected, finalized finisher. But then you have to recall, this is 2013. Tanahashi's never won a title in New Japan ever before.
Right.
The one big feud he ever had with Tiger Mask, he lost it and got his head shaved and then lost his mask. Yeah, so I mean, it's not the same time Ishii, and I mean, even this match is happening on a Road 2 event,
Right, which is crazy because you would think an Ishii never match that's probably main eventing a
something.
Yeah.
But the match is it's so awesome, and anyone who's never seen Masato Tanaka, this is a highly recommended match. If you've seen Ishii, obviously this is him in his prime. He's looking a little chunky here, huh?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
But yeah, that match just rules.
Yeah,
there's one point where
match.
he hits Tanaka something, goes to pin him, and Tanaka kicks out at one, and I was like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, man, this match was so awesome. So if you have not watched this yet, guys, you need to go out of your way and watch this Ishii Tanaka match.
Tanaka eats him up a little bit though, huh?
He does, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. If you guys haven't seen it, you gotta check it out.
Then for my pick for recommended match of the week is to get us ready for Wrestle Grand Slam, the upcoming IWGP US title match. We're going to go back to G127, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kota Ibushi.
Yeah, so we're going to watch the greatest G1 final in history.
No, this is not the 2018 match. This is the 2017 match.
Oh, it's not the finals. Okay. It's from the year prior.
Yeah.
That's a good match, too. Yeah. You got me hyped. I was like, oh, man, we're watching the 2018 finals.
Yeah, I've never seen this 2017 one, so I figured I'd throw that one out there since we haven't.
You didn't watch the G1 that year?
I like cherry pick stuff, and I don't know. I don't remember getting to this one.
Yeah. See, earlier in the show, I said I didn't watch full G1s, but I cherry picked them too. But I'd watch the best stuff, and I definitely saw Tanahashi Ibushi that year. It was awesome.
Well, looking forward to checking it out. Like we said, these guys never have bad matches. Will help us get hyped for the U.S. title match coming up at Wrestle Grand Slam.
Awesome.
And that's going to wrap things up for this week. Next week, we'll be back to review these week's Summer Struggle shows that are happening and to cover all the latest news that's happening in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show if you enjoyed today's show by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/Social Suplex. You can also find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we're at Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Also, check out our Discord server. The link is in the show notes for that. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rachel Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences Podcast, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. 8-Bit Suplex with Josh, #2. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. And the Great Match Generator with Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Itchy Pod.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Gym sessions and sweaty summer activities are back, which means more funky smells in your clothes because sweat leaves behind bacteria that causes those hard-to-remove odors. Clorox fabric sanitizer products are ready to zap the stink out of fabrics in your home by getting rid of 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria. Eliminate odors in every load or sanitize fabrics between washes with one of our fabric sanitizer products. Search Fabric Sanitizer at Clorox.com to learn more. When it counts, trust Clorox. Use as directed.
Sports have a way of bringing us all together. And at Sleeper, we developed a fantasy platform designed to make leagues more fun and personal. Sleeper includes an integrated chat and every feature you could want for your NFL, NBA, and even esport leagues. Plus, it's completely free with no ads. See why millions have made Sleeper the fastest-growing fantasy platform. Download Sleeper on the App Store or Google Play today.